The night wind swept across San Francisco Bay, carrying a trace of salt and the chill of the sea through the tall glass walls of the mansion on the hill. A black car rolled to a stop before the iron gates, headlights cutting across the lavender bushes that swayed in the breeze. The clock on the dashboard struck 11 as Ethan Carter stepped out. Tall, weary, his shoulders drooping after an 18-hour flight from Tokyo. He had come home 3 days earlier than planned. The business deal had ended quickly, but that wasn't the reason. He couldn't explain it himself. There was only a quiet pull deep inside him, a vague calling that told him to come home, to the place where he had left his soul 3 years ago. The mansion was silent. A single light glowed faintly from upstairs, casting long shadows on the white walls. His footsteps echoed on the wooden floor, sharp and lonely. The faint scent of lavender lingered in the air, the housekeeper's way of softening the emptiness. But tonight, there was something else hidden beneath that fragrance. Something fragile and unfamiliar. From the end of the hallway came a soft murmur. Ethan stopped and listened. The voice was gentle, melodic, unmistakably feminine. He moved closer and paused at the half-open door of the children's room. Warm light spilled through the crack, and there she was, Lila Morales, the new nanny Mrs. Brooks had hired a month ago, kneeling between 3 small beds. Her head was bowed, her hands folded together with the children's tiny fingers. Her voice flowed like a quiet melody. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this home. Thank you for the ones we love. Thank you because we are not alone. The 3 little boys, Noah, Lucas, and Eli, had their eyes closed, faces glowing with a serenity that took Ethan's breath away. In the soft golden light, they looked almost angelic. He had seen them scream, fight, and cry, but never like this. Never so calm. His suitcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor. Lila looked up, startled. Their eyes met, his full of disbelief, hers calm but uncertain. "Dad!" Lucas shouted. Ethan forced a smile. "Hey, buddy." "I thought you were still in Japan," Noah said. "Finished early," Ethan replied, his voice rough with emotion. Lila stood, adjusting her apron. "Welcome home, Mr. Carter. We didn't expect you tonight." He shook his head slowly. "It's fine. Please, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt." She nodded softly and turned back to the children. Her voice wrapped the room like warmth itself. "Thank you for hearing us. Amen." 3 small voices echoed, "Amen." And in that instant, something inside Ethan broke. He had forgotten what peace sounded like. Forgotten that silence could be gentle instead of empty. When Lila tucked the boys under their blankets, he slipped away, his steps heavy as if carrying all 3 lost years on his back. He entered his study, closed the door, and sank into the chair. The blueprints of a skyscraper lay unfinished under the lamp, the clean lines suddenly meaningless. Everything he'd built, success, wealth, recognition, felt hollow. His hands trembled as he pressed them to his face. The image of his sons praying would not leave him. They had learned gratitude while he had learned only avoidance. His chest tightened, breath caught in his throat, and then the tears came, slow, hot, unstoppable. 3 years without crying, and now 1 moment of peace from his children had undone him. 3 years, he whispered into the dark. My kids learned to pray, and I forgot how. Outside, the city kept shining. Cars moved like rivers of light below, but inside that cold study, a tiny flame had been lit. Not from the lamp, but from somewhere deep within him, a place that had been dark for too long. Ethan looked out through the glass wall, the night sky reflecting the city lights. For the first time, San Francisco didn't feel distant. For the first time, he truly felt that he was home, not just in his house, but in his heart. And in the stillness, one question echoed softly through his mind. Who is she? That night, long after the house had gone silent, Ethan Carter sat in his study, the echo of a soft female voice still haunting his mind. Who was she? The question lingered, pulling him back to a memory from just a month earlier, the day he first met Lila Morales. It had been a rainy afternoon in San Francisco. His office on the 26th floor overlooked the fog-draped bay. Papers cluttered his desk, contracts blinking on his screen, but his focus was elsewhere. To him, interviewing a new nanny was nothing but routine, another futile attempt. He didn't believe anyone could last in his house. "Mr. Carter, she's here," Mrs. Brooks, his longtime housekeeper, announced softly. "Send her in," he replied without looking up, his fingers still tapping on the laptop keys. The door opened. A young woman entered quietly, slender frame, cautious steps, yet steady eyes. She wore a simple cream dress, her brown hair tied back neatly. No makeup, no perfume, just a calm, natural presence that seemed to warm the sterile room. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. I'm Lila Morales." Her voice was gentle but clear enough to make him glance up. He skimmed her file. Monterey, California. Former elementary school teacher. Reason for leaving: school closure. Setting the papers aside, he said coolly, "You used to teach. Why apply for a nanny position? That's quite a downgrade." Her smile didn't waver. "Not really. I've always worked with children, and I need a steady job. My mother's in the hospital." Ethan leaned back, folding his arms. "I'm not looking for someone who talks nicely. I need someone who can survive the chaos. 7 before you couldn't." "I know," she said calmly. He frowned. "And what makes you different?" She drew a quiet breath before answering, her eyes unwavering. "Because I'm not afraid of difficult children." He froze. The rhythmic tapping on the keyboard stopped. For the first time, he really looked at her. She wasn't timid, nor defiant, just composed, as if her calm came from something deeper. He thought of his sons, Noah, Lucas, and Eli, wild 6-year-olds who'd turned every nanny into a casualty. Since their mother left, no one had lasted. The house had become a battlefield. "Do you even know what you're walking into?" His voice was low, almost warning. 3 boys who've driven 7 people out in 18 months. You still want the job?" "I do," she said, steady as stone. "Because I don't believe in bad children, Mr. Carter. Only hurt ones that no one bothers to understand." Her words hit something inside him. A part of him wanted to scoff, but another part, the one he'd buried, felt something stir. There was conviction in her tone, the kind born of compassion, not naivety. "Any certifications in child psychology?" he asked dryly. "No, but I spent 3 years teaching children with mild learning disorders. I know how to listen before I correct." Every word came out sincere, unembellished. He leaned forward, studying her. "I travel 3 weeks a month. My sons attend an international school, home at 3, dinner at 7, bedtime at 8. They're not easy, not polite, definitely not sweet. Still interested?" "I am," she said simply, "because if no one stays long enough, they'll start believing they don't deserve love." Something in his chest tightened. No one had ever said that to him, not about his children. Mrs. Brooks shifted beside him. "Mr. Carter, perhaps, it's fine." He cut her off, eyes still on Lila. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow, if possible." "Good. I leave for Tokyo on Thursday. Mrs. Brooks will brief you. I don't care how you manage them, just keep them alive." As she turned to leave, he added quietly, "If it's too much, you can quit. I won't blame you." She looked back, a faint smile curving her lips. "I don't quit that easily, Mr. Carter." When the door closed behind her, the room fell silent except for the rain tapping on the glass. Ethan stood motionless, gazing out at the fog-covered bay. For the first time in years, a faint warmth stirred in the emptiness. He sat back down, reopened his laptop, but the words blurred before his eyes. Only one sentence echoed in his mind. "I'm not afraid of difficult children." The next morning, the sky over San Francisco was pale and misty. Sunlight filtered weakly through the glass walls of the Carter mansion, spilling over the polished wooden floors like a thin veil. Lila arrived early, standing by the iron gate, drawing a deep breath to steady herself. Inside, the house was quiet, the faint sound of waves breaking somewhere beyond the cliffs. Mrs. Brooks opened the door, her expression a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Good morning, Miss Morales. Come in. Mr. Carter left for the airport at dawn. The boys are upstairs." "Thank you." Lila smiled, gripping her bag a little tighter. Her pulse quickened, but her resolve was firm. She climbed the staircase, each step creaking faintly. The scent of coffee and pine lingered in the air, masking something heavier. Tension, perhaps sadness. As she reached the landing, a sharp noise erupted from behind the door at the end of the hall. "Get out! I don't need a babysitter!" Lucas shouted. "You broke my Lego, stupid!" Noah yelled back. In the corner, Eli sat clutching a pillow, eyes wet with tears. Lila pushed the door open. The room was chaos. Scattered toys, shattered Lego pieces, papers torn. Two boys wrestled in anger while the smallest one trembled silently. No one noticed her at first. Mrs. Brooks, hovering behind her, murmured, "I told you, they're three little hurricanes." Lila nodded calmly. "I'll handle it." As the door closed behind the housekeeper, the noise filled the space again. Lila didn't shout. She didn't demand silence. She simply stood still, watching, her eyes soft but focused. She knew anger often came wrapped around pain. When Lucas hurled the toy plane against the floor, she finally spoke. "That's a beautiful airplane," she said softly. "But it can't fly when someone's angry." Three pairs of eyes turned to her, startled. "Who are you?" Noah snapped. "I'm someone who'll be around for a while," she replied gently. "My name's Lila." "You'll leave too," Lucas muttered. "Everyone leaves." Lila lowered herself to their level, kneeling so her eyes met theirs. "Maybe," she said, "but before I go, I'd like to know your names." Eli peeked from behind his pillow. "I'm Eli." "Hello, Eli," she smiled, then looked to the older two. "And the loud ones?" They said nothing. "That's okay," she whispered. "When you're ready, I'll be here." She began picking up the broken Lego pieces, placing them gently on the table. Lucas frowned, suspicious. "Aren't you scared of us?" he asked. She looked up, her voice calm. "Scared? No. I only get scared when people stop caring about each other." The words hung in the air. The tension eased, not much, but enough for the storm to pause. Breakfast was a mess. Oatmeal on the walls, milk on the floor. Lila didn't scold. She cleaned, humming softly as she worked. When they locked themselves in their room later, she didn't bang the door. She left a tray of cookies and milk outside, with a note that read, "Thank you for letting me spend my first day with you." By evening, the house had quieted. The boys were exhausted, sprawled on their separate beds, each one turned away from the others. Lila stood by the door, looking at the distance between them, 3 small islands adrift in the same sea. She stepped forward and gently pushed the beds closer. The wood creaked, drawing Noah's startled voice. "What are you doing?" "Just thinking." She smiled. "Brothers shouldn't sleep alone." Lucas frowned. "We haven't shared a bed in a long time." "Then tonight's a good night to start again." She nodded toward the chair. "I'll be right here. If you can't sleep, just call me." They didn't answer, but they didn't move away either. Lila switched off the main light, leaving only a small, warm lamp glowing beside them. Outside, the sea breathed softly against the cliffs. Within minutes, the fight drained from their bodies. Noah turned toward Lucas, brushing his brother's arm. Eli hugged his pillow tight, eyelids fluttering. The room filled with the sound of even breaths, steady, peaceful, fragile. Lila exhaled slowly, a faint smile on her lips. The first victory she knew wasn't obedience. It was safety. Beyond the window, the night stretched wide over the bay. A cool wind stirred the curtains, and for the first time in years, the Carter house slept in peace. And from that small act of kindness, the long journey of healing began. At dawn, the first rays of sunlight slipped through the window, brushing across the faces of 3 sleeping boys. Lila woke in the armchair beside their beds, her back aching slightly, but her heart strangely light. The room was still, the boys' soft breaths mingling with the distant whisper of the sea. No screams, no tears, just peace. For the first time, the house had slept. She smiled, knowing it was a small beginning, but a real one. In the days that followed, the Carter house began to change. The shouting grew quieter. The wary glances softened into fleeting smiles. The boys still tested her, but they no longer looked through her. They began eating together, sometimes laughing when she spilled milk or made the cocoa too sweet. Lila didn't preach, didn't correct. She simply stayed, her presence patient and steady, filling the silence with stories of dolphins and ocean tides back in Monterey Bay. One afternoon, chasing the sound of a stray cat behind the mansion, she discovered a narrow path buried in leaves. It led to an old greenhouse, its frame rusted, glass clouded, vines climbing like wild memories. The door creaked open to the smell of damp soil and fading flowers. Broken pots lay scattered on the ground, and in one corner, a few dried seeds still clung to life. Lila's lips curved into a smile. "Maybe this is the right place to start again," she whispered. The next day, she brought the boys out back. Noah frowned, Lucas yawned, and Eli clung to her hand. "Where are we going?" Lucas demanded. "To discover a secret," she said mysteriously. When the rusty door opened, sunlight poured through the dusty glass, catching the floating motes in the air like golden dust. Lucas squinted. "This place is old and beautiful," Lila said softly. "If we clean it, maybe it'll breathe again." Noah shrugged. "Why bother?" "To plant happiness," she replied simply. She handed each of them a small pair of gloves and a tiny shovel. Lucas smirked. "We're not gardeners." "Neither am I," Lila laughed. "But I believe if someone cares for a seed, it will grow." That afternoon, the greenhouse came alive with laughter, the sound of soil being turned and water splashing onto glass. Lila wiped the sweat from her forehead, watching them work. Eli carefully watering, Lucas sweeping up leaves, Noah scraping moss from the panes. Sunlight broke through the glass, washing their dusty faces in gold. When they finished, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small packet. "Sunflowers," she said. "They always look for the light, even on cloudy days." Eli's eyes lit up. We get to plant them? Yes. This will be our secret garden. Lucas repeated the name under his breath, nodding slowly. Secret garden. I like that. From then on, every afternoon was spent there. They watered, dug, and watched the soil. And as the seeds began to take root, so did something else. Trust. The distance between them shrank, replaced by curiosity and laughter. One evening, sitting on the wooden steps outside the greenhouse, the scent of damp earth around them, Lucas broke the quiet. Miss Lila, I miss Dad. She turned to him gently. Missing someone means your heart still remembers love. That's a good thing. Noah hesitated, then whispered, Is it our fault Mom left? Silence fell. Eli's eyes filled with tears. Lila felt her chest tighten. She drew the three of them close, their small shoulders pressing against her. No, my loves, she said softly. People leave for many reasons, but it's never a child's fault. Sometimes grown-ups don't know how to stay. Pain is never your burden to carry. Eli sniffled. I'm scared of the dark. I don't like it when nobody's there. The dark is only scary when you forget the light still exists, Lila whispered. Tomorrow we'll plant more flowers, so there's always light. The boys nodded. In that moment, Lila felt something shift inside her too, a quiet healing she hadn't expected. She thought of her mother in the hospital, of long nights in Monterey, and realized she wasn't just teaching them to heal. They were healing her as well. As night fell, the moonlight glimmered through the glass roof. Beneath the soil, the sunflower seeds rested, unseen yet alive. Lila smiled, knowing that even in silence, life was moving, just like the boys, still fragile, still afraid, but already learning to bloom. She whispered into the cool night air, a prayer of gratitude. Thank you for letting me be here, among hearts learning how to grow. And somewhere in the gentle rustle of vines above her, it felt as though the world whispered back, softly, you're home. Since the secret garden came alive, the Carter mansion had changed. Light seemed to linger longer in its halls, softening the edges of silence. Each afternoon, after school, the three boys ran toward the greenhouse with muddy hands and bright laughter. The first sunflower sprouts had appeared, fragile, green, and full of promise. Lila called them seeds of faith. She told the boys that faith, like a seed, needed water, light, and time to grow. One evening, after baths and dinner, the boys gathered on the carpet in the living room, watching her expectantly. Lila smiled, placing a gentle hand on each small shoulder. Before bed, she said, we'll say thank you. It doesn't have to be long, just honest. Noah frowned. Thank who? Thank life, she said softly. Thank today for letting us be together. Lucas rolled his eyes. What if today wasn't good? Then thank it for giving us tomorrow, she replied with warmth. Eli looked up shyly. You go first, Miss Lila. She nodded, folding her hands, closing her eyes. Her voice was steady and tender. Thank you for the food tonight. Thank you for this home. Thank you because we are not alone. Silence filled the room. Noah glanced at her, then mimicked the gesture. Thank you for not getting yelled at today, he murmured. Lucas smirked. Thank you for those cookies. They were good. Eli whispered, Thank you for someone tucking me in. Lila smiled. Beautiful. Every day your hearts will grow a little bigger. That night, for the first time in months, all three boys slept peacefully. No crying, no nightmares, just the quiet rhythm of small breaths and the sea breeze moving through the curtains. From that night on, the bedtime prayer became a ritual, not a rule, but a seed planted each evening. Faith, Lila would say, is watering the garden inside you. You can't see it grow, but one day it will bloom. Some nights their prayers were simple and silly. Thank you because Lucas didn't spill the milk. Thank you because Eli didn't cry at thunder. Thank you because Noah smiled. And Lila, always last, would whisper, "Thank you because we are learning to love again." Meanwhile, halfway across the world, under the neon haze of Tokyo, Ethan Carter sat alone by the hotel window, a glass of wine untouched, his phone screen glowing with a photo. 3 boys laughing in a garden, dirt on their faces. Behind them stood a woman in a white blouse, her hair messy from the wind, her smile brighter than the sun. Lila Morales. They looked happy. Too happy, and for the first time, he realized happiness no longer included him. He leaned back, eyes closed. Outside, Tokyo sparkled, but inside, everything felt hollow. How many times had he asked himself why he kept running? For success? For fear? For the comfort of not feeling? He had built towers, conquered deals, won awards, but couldn't walk into his own home without feeling like an intruder. Looking at that photo, he knew. Someone else was giving his children what he couldn't. He whispered, barely audible, "Thank you for someone caring for them when I couldn't." But gratitude gave way to ache. In San Francisco, the children's voices drifted through the night air, their whispers carried by the wind. "Thank you for the food tonight. Thank you for this home. Thank you because we are not alone." And though Ethan couldn't hear them, his heart stirred, as if something fragile inside him had been reached across oceans. 2 worlds moved in parallel, a man still running from his pain, and a woman quietly healing it. Neither knew that somewhere between faith and distance, fate had already begun to weave them toward one another. In Tokyo, dawn broke over the skyline, painting the city in silver light. Ethan Carter sat in his hotel chair, motionless, the wine glass untouched. He hadn't slept. His mind replayed that photograph. 3 laughing boys and a woman named Lila Morales. There was something in that image he couldn't explain. Warmth, the kind he thought no longer existed in his home. He looked out at the city below. The streets pulsed with life, taxis flashing through the morning fog. For years, this had been his kingdom. Success, precision, control. But this morning, none of it mattered. All he could hear was the faint whisper in his chest. Go home. 3 days later, the very moment we saw at the beginning, the black car rolled to a stop before the gates of the Carter estate. The evening air carried the scent of the bay. Ethan stepped out, not as a businessman this time, but as a father returning home. Inside, the house was spotless, but warmer somehow. From upstairs came the sound of small voices, soft, rhythmic. He followed it, heart thudding. At the door of the children's room, he stopped. Lila's voice filled the air, low and tender. Thank you for the food today. Thank you for this home. Thank you because we are not alone. 3 smaller voices followed. Amen. The sight froze him. His sons knelt beside her, hands folded, faces calm. The scene mirrored that night weeks ago, but this time he understood. It wasn't coincidence. It was ritual. Faith. Healing. Lila opened her eyes and saw him. Surprise flickered, then softened. Don't stop, he murmured. I just want to watch. Later, after the boys had drifted to sleep, Ethan sat in the living room. Lila brought him tea. "I didn't expect you back so soon," she said quietly. "I've been gone too long," he replied. "I realized I don't even know who my children are anymore." "They don't need you perfect," she said gently. "Just present." Her words struck deep. Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay. For good." The next morning, he joined them for breakfast. For the first time, he sat at the table, fumbling with a knife as Noah giggled and Lucas teased. Eli's laughter rang out like bells. Ethan looked at them, really looked, and realized he was smiling too. That afternoon, he helped Noah with his solar system project. The boy explained orbits with excitement. "What happens?" Ethan asked. "If a planet drifts away from the sun?" "It keeps going," Noah said, "until something pulls it back." The answer hit him like truth. Maybe he was that planet, and these little hands were pulling him home. Later, he played soccer with Lucas in the garden, the ball bouncing among the tall sunflowers. They both laughed when Ethan missed. Each laugh felt like air after years underwater. As the day faded, Eli read a poem he'd written. "The dark's not scary when someone's near. Dreams don't wander when Dad's right here." Ethan knelt, voice trembling. "That's beautiful, son. I'm sorry I left you in the dark so long." That evening, the dining room glowed for the first time in years. No silence, no tension, just laughter, the clink of dishes, and the warmth of belonging. From the staircase, Margaret watched her son smile, a real smile, and felt her eyes sting. Lila sat across the table, quiet but content. When Ethan's gaze met hers, gratitude passed between them, unspoken. After dinner, the boys raced outside under the moonlight. Ethan stood by the window, watching them chase each other through the sunflowers. "For 3 years," he said softly, "I thought I'd lost everything. But maybe I just needed to learn how to love." "Sometimes," Lila replied, "loving simply means staying." Outside, the sunflowers swayed in the night breeze, their golden heads lifting toward the moon. Inside the Carter home, laughter filled the air again, real and alive. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. For the first time in years, he felt whole. In the days after that dinner, the Carter mansion felt reborn. Laughter filled the halls. Breakfasts turned into chatter instead of silence. Ethan began to slow down. He no longer rushed out before sunrise or came home after midnight. Instead, he brewed his own coffee, listened to the sound of small feet on wooden floors, and to Lila humming softly in the kitchen. Her presence changed everything, not with grand gestures, but with quiet grace. A floral tablecloth, a new picture frame, fresh sunflowers on the windowsill. Life had returned in gentle, invisible ways. Ethan noticed the change not only in the house, but in himself. When Lila smiled, the light seemed brighter. When she walked by, the scent of lavender lingered and calmed something deep inside him. He told himself it was gratitude, nothing more. But gratitude, he learned, could grow into something else, something dangerous and tender. One afternoon, he watched her in the garden with the boys. The sunlight gilded her hair as she helped Eli water the flowers, while Lucas chased butterflies and Noah scribbled homework on the steps. It was a picture of peace. For the first time, Ethan realized beauty wasn't in the architecture he built. It was in this chaos of love and laughter. He joined Noah, helping with a math problem. When he looked up, Lila's eyes met his. No words passed, yet something did. Quiet, deep, undeniable. Time blurred. The days grew softer. Ethan worked less, stayed home more. He learned to listen, to laugh. Each evening as he heard his sons whisper their nightly thanks, a piece of his heart healed. And beside him, Lila remained constant, never crossing lines, never asking for more. But her quiet strength drew him closer than he'd ever allowed anyone before. Then, one morning, the front door opened and a chill swept in. Margaret Carter had arrived unannounced, her elegance sharp as steel. She hadn't set foot in this house for months. "Mother?" Ethan said in surprise. "You're not inviting me in?" she replied, arching a brow. Her gaze quickly found Lila, who stood near the kitchen, startled. "So you're the nanny everyone's talking about?" Her tone dripped with disdain. Lila bowed politely. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter." Margaret smiled thinly. "You seem very dedicated. I hear the children have improved. Admirable. But don't forget who you are, Miss Morales. A nanny remains a nanny, and this family does not need scandal." Silence froze the room. Ethan rose, voice low but firm. "That's enough, Mother." She turned to him, eyes sharp. "You know I'm right. The press would destroy you. The Carter name can't afford such stories. You're insulting the woman who brought joy back into this home," he said, anger simmering beneath control. "Joy?" she scoffed. "Or weakness?" Lila stood still, her hands tightening around her apron, her expression calm but wounded. Ethan saw it, the quiet dignity of someone used to being judged. When Margaret finally left, he turned to speak, but Lila shook her head. "It's all right, Mr. Carter. I understand." "You shouldn't have to," he said. Her smile was faint. "People can think what they want, as long as we know who we are." Her grace disarmed him completely, but it also made the distance between them feel impossibly wide. The next day, Daniel Kim arrived at Ethan's office, looking uneasy. "Your mother was right, you know. Rumors spread fast. A photo, a whisper. That's all it takes. The press will eat you alive." Ethan stared out the window. "Are you worried for me or the company?" "Both," Daniel said. "You're a Carter. You don't get to live like ordinary men." Ethan said nothing. Daniel left, and the silence pressed heavy on him. He knew Daniel was right, about the world, the image, the expectations. But for the first time, Ethan didn't care about being right. That evening, when he returned home, Lila was reading with Eli. Sunlight streamed through the window, tracing gold in her hair. She looked up and smiled, and all the tension drained from him. He sat beside them, saying nothing, content to share the same quiet. Later that night, as she cleaned the kitchen, he spoke softly. "You shouldn't let what my mother said get to you." "It doesn't," she replied, "but I'm afraid others will care enough for me." He understood. They stood close, the silence between them alive with everything unsaid. Outside, the wind swept through the sunflowers, their golden heads swaying like they too were listening. Inside the small kitchen, two hearts beat in rhythm, near, but not yet allowed to touch. Neither spoke another word, yet both knew something had already begun. And the next morning, when an unexpected letter arrived addressed to Miss Lila Morales, destiny quietly turned another page. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the glass roof of the secret garden. Lila stood among the blooming sunflowers, a cup of tea warming her hands. Everything looked peaceful, yet inside her chest was a quiet unease, as if the calm had an expiration date. At 10 o'clock, Mrs. Brooks entered holding an envelope. "This just arrived for you, Miss Morales." Lila took it, her fingers trembling slightly. The handwriting on the front read, "From Mrs. Margaret Carter." Inside was a note, written in precise, elegant script. Join me for lunch at the Fairmont Hotel, noon today. There are matters we should clarify. Margaret Carter. Lila folded the letter carefully. She knew what was coming. The Fairmont's rooftop restaurant shimmered with glass and light. Margaret sat waiting, immaculate in silk gray, posture perfect, smile polite. "Miss Morales," she greeted smoothly. "Thank you for coming." Lila inclined her head. "You wanted to speak with me. I'm here to listen." The waiter poured wine. Margaret waited until he left, then began, voice calm but cutting. "You've done well. Ethan is himself again. The boys are happy. For that, I'm grateful." "You don't need to thank me," Lila said softly. "It's my job." Margaret's smile sharpened. "Exactly. And that job should end before things exceed their boundaries." Lila set down her glass. "You think I've crossed one?" "Let's not pretend," Margaret replied. "You know how cruel the world can be. One photo, one whisper, and your name, my son's, and this family's will be dragged through the mud. I won't allow it." She reached into her purse and placed a thick envelope on the table. $100,000. Enough for a new start. Leave quietly. No drama. No scandal. Lila stared at it, the sunlight reflecting off the table blinding her eyes. "You think I'm here for money?" "Everyone has a price, Miss Morales," Margaret said coolly. "This is how I protect my family, and perhaps you." Lila took a deep breath. "I won't take your money, but you're right about one thing. I will leave." Margaret blinked, surprised. "Because you fear me?" "No," Lila said, rising. "Because I respect myself. I won't be the reason he has to bow his head." Margaret's lips curved faintly. "Then you're wiser than I thought." Lila bowed politely. "Self-respect, Mrs. Carter, is one thing no amount of money can buy." That evening, the sky turned gray over San Francisco. In the greenhouse, Lila packed quietly. She arranged the potted flowers, closed her notebook, and tied her suitcase. The sound of small footsteps broke the stillness. "Miss Lila, what are you doing?" Noah's voice trembled. "I have to go, sweetheart." "Go where?" Eli grabbed her hand. "Somewhere else." "For how long?" Lucas asked, eyes wide. She knelt, pulling them close. "I don't know, but I'll pray for you every night. Remember, pain is never your fault." Eli's voice cracked. "I'm scared." "I know, honey, but I'm not alone. God goes with me." A voice echoed from behind them. "What's going on?" Ethan stood in the doorway, confusion turning to disbelief as he saw the suitcase. "You're leaving?" "Yes," Lila said softly. "My time here is over." "No, you can't just walk away." His voice broke. "You can't leave the boys. You can't leave me." She looked away. "It's for the best, Mr. Carter." "What did my mother do?" "She just reminded me of what I already knew, that I don't belong here." "You belong here more than anyone," he said, stepping closer. Her eyes glistened. "Sometimes love isn't about belonging. It's about dignity." "I'm sorry, Ethan." He reached out, but she stepped back, closing the suitcase. The boys stood frozen, tears streaming. Lila kissed each forehead. "Good night, my loves. Don't forget to say your prayers." Then she turned and walked away. The greenhouse door shut behind her with a hollow sound. Ethan stood motionless, his hand hanging useless in the air. Outside, the car engine started, headlights flashing once before disappearing into the mist. Wind swept through the garden, bending the tall sunflowers. Ethan sank to his knees, covering his face, and for the first time since his wife left, he wept, not for loss, but for the love he'd found too late. That night, after Lila's car disappeared into the rain, Ethan sat motionless in the greenhouse. The air smelled of damp earth and lavender, the remnants of her presence lingering like a ghost. Outside, sunflowers bent under the storm, bowing their golden heads in silent mourning. By morning, the Carter mansion was heavy with silence. Mrs. Brooks set the breakfast table quietly. The boys didn't speak. Eli's eyes were swollen. Lucas stared at the door as if she might still walk through it, and Noah clutched Lila's prayer book against his chest. Ethan came down, exhausted, his eyes hollow. One look at his sons' faces, hurt, confused, betrayed, was enough. He knew they didn't need to ask who was to blame. Without a word, he left. The car stopped outside Margaret's grand estate. Rain still fell as he strode in, not waiting for the butler. Margaret looked up from her newspaper, startled. "Ethan? What on earth?" "What did you do to her?" he demanded. She blinked. "Her? Oh, you mean Miss Morales? I simply spoke with her. A conversation that needed to happen." "Needed?" His voice cracked into a bitter laugh. "You call destroying our happiness necessary?" Her tone sharpened. "You call this happiness? Falling for a woman who works for you? You're a Carter, Ethan. Have you forgotten who you are?" He took a step forward, anger and pain trembling in his voice. "No, Mother. You forgot who I am. You raised me to believe that money fixes everything, that success matters more than love, and I believed you. I became exactly what you wanted. Cold, efficient, empty. I was a ghost for 3 years, until she came." Margaret's lips parted. She'd never seen her son like this, alive, angry, broken. "I thought you were protecting me," he continued. "But you were only protecting yourself, your image, your pride. You said she wasn't worthy of me. But did you ever wonder if I was worthy of anyone?" "Ethan," her voice faltered. "I love her, Mother," he said, eyes shining. "For the first time in my life, I feel human. And you took that from me." Margaret's throat tightened. She'd never seen him cry before, not even as a boy. He turned away. "If you want to protect this family, stop destroying what makes it alive." He left, the door slamming behind him. The echo lingered long after the sound faded. That afternoon, Margaret arrived at the Carter mansion. The children were in chaos, crying, shouting, throwing toys. Lucas hurled a ball against the wall. Noah slammed his book shut. Eli sobbed quietly in a corner. When they saw her, they froze. "Children," she began, but Lucas's voice cut through, shaking. "You made her go away." Margaret froze. Eli ran upstairs crying, and Noah whispered, "She was the only one who made us feel safe." Their footsteps faded, leaving the house unbearably quiet. Margaret sat down, trembling. Her eyes fell on a photo of Lila and the boys, smiling beneath the sunflowers. The sight broke something inside her. When Ethan returned home, she was still there, clutching the frame. They locked eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, in a voice stripped of pride, she whispered, "You were right. I spent my life guarding reputation and forgot what happiness looked like. I saw the children today. I saw what I did." Ethan said nothing, but his expression softened. Margaret placed the photo on the table, her voice low. "We have to bring her back, Ethan, for them, for you, and for me." Outside, the rain had stopped. The last light of sunset streamed through the window, bathing her face in gold. For the first time in years, Margaret Carter bowed her head, not to society, not to pride, but to love, the one thing she'd never believed in, now the only thing that could save them all. The next morning, sunlight poured through the glass windows, reflecting on the breakfast table where last night's dishes still lay untouched. Ethan stood silently by the window, holding the photograph of Lila and the 3 children in the sunflower garden. Outside, the wind from the bay carried the salty scent of the sea, reminding him of the evenings when she told the boys stories about the seaside town where she was born, Monterey Bay. He turned when he heard footsteps. Margaret entered, her movements slow but resolute. "Have you found out where she is?" she asked quietly. Ethan nodded. "Monterey. She once said her mother was receiving treatment there. I think she's gone home." Margaret nodded, her eyes calm but filled with something new, determination mixed with remorse. "Then we're going with you," she said. Ethan blinked. "Mother?" She met his eyes, her voice low but firm. "I sent her away. Now I must help bring her back. This family needs to do it together." By noon, the black SUV rolled out of San Francisco, heading south along the winding coastal road. In the back seat, the 3 children sat silently. No one argued, no one asked questions. Eli hugged his teddy bear. Lucas stared out the window, and Noah held tightly to Lila's prayer notebook. The sea stretched wide beside them, waves crashing against the cliffs, white foam sparkling in the sunlight. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, his other hand trembling slightly. In his mind, one question repeated endlessly. Will she forgive me? No one spoke. Only the sound of the tires on the asphalt and the distant crash of waves filled the car. Suddenly, Eli's small voice broke the silence. "Dad, can we pray for Miss Lila?" Ethan's throat tightened. He glanced in the rearview mirror. "Yes, son." The 3 boys joined hands, eyes closed. Noah began softly, his voice shaking. "Dear God, please let her forgive us." Lucas continued, "Please let her know we love her." Eli whispered through tears, "Please don't let her be sad anymore." In that fragile quiet, Margaret sat beside her son, her wrinkled hands resting in her lap. She had never prayed in her life. She'd always believed in logic, control, power, not faith. But hearing those little voices whispering hope into the air, something inside her cracked open. She closed her eyes and murmured, her voice trembling like a child learning to speak, "Please, let that girl forgive me." Ethan glanced at her. He had never seen his mother like this. No pride, no armor. Just a woman asking for grace. The car continued down the coastal highway, past rolling green hills and tiny seaside towns where wildflowers swayed in the wind and the air smelled of salt. The scenery was breathtaking, but inside the car, no one felt peace. By late afternoon, the sky turned a deep amber. Ethan slowed down as Monterey Bay came into view. Golden water glimmering under the fading sun, seagulls gliding above the waves. Noah looked up, his voice soft. "Dad, is this where she grew up?" "Yes," Ethan said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "She said she used to sit by this beach where the wind touched her hair and the waves sang." Lucas gave a faint smile. "She said the sea is like a prayer, because it never stops." Ethan's chest tightened. He said nothing, gripping the steering wheel harder. In his mind, he could still hear her gentle voice whispering every night, "Thank you, because we are not alone." Now, he was the one who felt truly alone. The car crossed the bridge leading into the town. The wind off the ocean blew stronger now, carrying the scent of salt and lavender from the fields along the coast. Margaret gazed out at the landscape, her eyes glinting with something unfamiliar. Peace, perhaps, the kind she had never known. Ethan inhaled deeply, keeping his voice steady. "We'll start at the hospital where her mother's being treated. She might be there." "Dad," Eli said softly. "Yes, son." "What if she doesn't want to see you?" Ethan didn't answer. The question struck deep, cutting through his resolve. His jaw tightened as his eyes stung. Margaret placed a hand on her son's shoulder. Her voice was the gentlest he'd ever heard it. "If she doesn't want to see you, you must still go. Because forgiveness isn't about being loved. It's about being worthy of love." Ethan nodded slowly. For the first time, he felt his mother understood. And perhaps they were all praying now, each in their own way. The car kept moving through the sunset. The ocean opened wide before them, endless and shimmering like a new beginning. The boys joined hands again and whispered one final prayer as the town of Monterey came into sight. "Please let her know. We never stopped loving her." Ethan fixed his gaze on the horizon, where the last light of day met the sea. His hands tightened on the wheel, fear and hope colliding in his chest, the fear of rejection and the hope of forgiveness. And as the sound of waves echoed against the cliffs, the Carter family's journey to reclaim love truly began. Twilight was fading when the Carter family's car stopped on the cobblestone road by the Monterey coast. The last rays of sunlight gilded the rooftops of the small town. Church bells rang softly through the air, deep and distant. Ethan looked around, and his heart tightened when he saw the small chapel on the hillside. Its wooden door slightly open, warm light spilling out from within. He stopped the car. No one had to speak. All three children knew she was there. Eli flung open the door and ran first, with Noah and Lucas close behind. Ethan and Margaret followed quickly, their hearts pounding. Inside, the scent of old wood and candles mingled into something sacred. At the altar, a wooden cross cast its shadow on the stone floor. And there, kneeling in the pews near the front, was Lila. Her small shoulders trembled, hands clasped before her chest, eyes closed, lips whispering prayers only God could hear. When the sound of small footsteps echoed behind her, she turned, and the world seemed to stop. The three boys ran toward her, tears streaming down their faces. Noah threw his arms around her, sobbing, "You said families never leave each other. So why did you go?" Lucas sniffled. "We prayed for you all the way here." Eli cried out between tears, "Please don't leave us again." Lila bowed her head, pulling all three into her arms. The sound of their crying filled the chapel like a living prayer. Her tears fell onto their hair. "I'm sorry. I thought leaving would protect you. But I see now, it only broke the smallest hearts." Behind them, Ethan stood frozen, every word cut through him like glass. Slowly, he walked forward, his face a storm of regret and love. "Lila." She looked up. Their eyes met, those of a man who once ran away and a woman who once waited. Ethan knelt beside her, right there in the middle aisle, the candlelight illuminating his face. "I was wrong," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I let fear rule me. Fear of losing reputation. Fear of love. Fear that if I loved you, I'd lose everything. But when you left, I finally understood what it means to lose everything." Lila shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You don't have to say it." "I do," he interrupted gently, his tone breaking but firm. "I have to thank you. You showed me that love isn't a luxury. It's the only thing that makes us truly alive. You taught me to look into my son's eyes, to pray, to be humble, to trust, to love without fear. You saved me, Lila." He took her hand, his touch trembling. "And now, there's one thing I want to ask." Her breath caught as she looked at him. "Lila," he said, voice low and full of emotion, "teach me to keep believing in love, in God, in people. Teach me how to be a husband, a father, a man." She shook her head, tears streaming freely. "Ethan, you don't have to beg for that." He smiled faintly, the kind of fragile, honest smile that made her chest ache. From his pocket, he drew out a small ring, simple silver, glowing softly in the candlelight. "Lila Morales," he said, voice trembling, "please stay. Marry me. Not for reputation, not for redemption, but because I love you. Because I want to pray with you every night, to teach our children to believe in good things, and because when I look ahead, I want the first person I see to always be you." Lila brought a hand to her lips, overcome. The chapel fell utterly silent, only the sound of waves outside breaking against the rocks. She lowered her head, placed her hand gently on his cheek, and whispered, "Do you know what I've prayed for these past days? For you to find your way home?" Ethan's eyes glistened. "I already have." She nodded, her voice trembling. "Then, yes, Ethan, I will." A soft applause rippled through the air. At the entrance, Margaret stood watching, tears falling freely down her face. She stepped forward slowly, her expression tender in a way it had never been. "Lila," she said, voice shaking, "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'll ask for it anyway. I did the worst thing. I judged you before ever knowing you. You've shown me something I never had the courage to believe, that love can change people." Lila rose to her feet, looking at the older woman before her. She walked over and took Margaret's trembling hands. "Forgiveness doesn't need to be asked for," she said softly. "You just have to love again." Margaret broke down in tears. Ethan stepped forward and placed a hand on his mother's shoulder. The three of them stood together in the middle of the chapel. A woman who had lost her faith, a woman who had run away, and a man who had lived in fear, all bowing before the one thing greater than them all: love, redeemed. The local parishioners who had witnessed the scene began to cry, then applauded. The sound filled the little seaside chapel, blending with the evening bells and the distant roar of the ocean. The boys wrapped their arms around Lila, laughing through tears. She said yes. She said yes. Said. Ethan looked at Lila, his eyes shining with a light no wealth could ever buy. He held her hand tightly and whispered, "We're home." And in that moment, every wound, every mistake, every wall between them dissolved. All that remained was the warmth of forgiveness, the light of love, and a quiet prayer rising in the soft glow of the chapel by the sea. Thank you for today. Thank you because we are no longer alone. As the church bells faded into the sea breeze that night, the Monterey coast still whispered like a lullaby of forgiveness. The Carter family left the chapel in silence. No one spoke, but inside each heart, something broken had begun to mend. And from that night on, everything started anew. 6 months passed. Summer returned, pouring golden sunlight across the Bay Area. In the garden behind the Carter estate, the old greenhouse had been reborn. The glass panes shone bright. The wooden floors had been replaced, and rows of sunflowers stretched tall and brilliant. Everything was ready for the great day, the wedding of Ethan and Lila. That morning, a gentle breeze swept through the garden, carrying the scent of lavender and the soft sound of violins. White ribbons tied around the glass frames fluttered in the light. The air was filled with harmony. Two worlds that once could not stand together now smiled, toasted, and shared in joy. On the left side sat Ethan's friends and business associates, entrepreneurs, executives, dignitaries. On the right were the people of Monterey, Lila's neighbors, her former students, and even the house staff who had served the Carter family for years. Under the sunlight and flowers, no boundaries remained. Margaret Carter sat in the front row, wearing a pale gray dress and holding a small bouquet. She smiled softly as she saw her son step out from behind the sunflowers. Tall, composed, his navy suit simple yet elegant, his eyes shining brighter than ever. Beside him were his 3 sons, dressed in matching suits, each holding a small wreath of flowers. When the first notes of Ave Maria filled the air, every head turned toward the flower-lined aisle. The greenhouse doors opened, and Lila appeared, her dress pure white and simple, her hair loose with a small sunflower pinned above her ear. Sunlight streamed through the glass, wrapping her in golden light, making her seem part of the sun itself, gentle, radiant, and serene. Ethan's throat tightened. The world blurred until all he could see was her, the woman who had pulled him from darkness, who had taught him to believe in things he thought were gone forever. When she reached him, he whispered, "You look beautiful." Lila smiled softly. "We made this place bloom together, Ethan." The priest began the ceremony, his voice slow and warm, blending with the rustling of the wind and leaves. "Today, before God and everyone present, you vow to walk together through light and shadow, to keep faith, and to love each other with patience and grace." Ethan held her hands, his gaze never leaving hers. When it was time for the vows, he spoke first, his voice trembling yet steady. "Lila, you taught me how to be human. You taught me how to love, how to kneel and pray, how to say thank you. Before you, I lived without living. Today, I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you with the heart you brought back to life." Lila looked at him, her eyes glistening with tears. Her voice was soft but sure. "Ethan, you taught me to believe in miracles. You showed me that even in pain, there's always a reason to be grateful. You made me believe that broken things can heal, that those who are afraid can love again. Today, I promise to build with you a home filled with faith and love." The greenhouse fell silent. Only the sound of distant waves echoed through the air. Then the priest smiled. "In the name of God, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Applause burst forth. The 3 boys cheered, running up to wrap their arms around them. Ethan bent down, lifted Eli into his arms and kissed his forehead. Lila laughed through her tears, sunlight glinting off the drop that rolled down her cheek. Margaret walked forward and embraced Lila tightly. Her voice trembled near Lila's ear. "Thank you for forgiving me, and for giving me a chance to love again." Lila squeezed her hand, smiling through tears. "You are part of this family, always." As dusk fell, the tables inside the greenhouse were set. Tiny lights hung everywhere, their reflections dancing across the glass like thousands of stars. Music drifted gently through the air. People raised their glasses, laughter mingling with the faraway rhythm of the sea. Later, Ethan stood and raised his wine glass, his voice low and full. "Today, we're not just celebrating a wedding, but the rebirth of a family. 6 months ago, this place was an abandoned greenhouse. Today, it's our heart." He turned to Lila, taking her hand, then looked at their 3 sons smiling nearby. "Every day, we'll pray together, just as you taught me." She nodded, smiling tenderly. He knelt beside her, and the 3 boys followed. Margaret slowly placed her hands on her grandchildren's shoulders, her eyes glistening in the candlelight. The family closed their eyes together, their voices uniting in one quiet, holy prayer. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this home. Thank you because we are no longer alone. Outside, the sunflowers swayed gently in the sea breeze. In the golden glow of the Monterey sunset, laughter, song, and prayer blended into one. The final harmony of a long journey. A journey of forgiveness, of love, and of miracles made real. After the wedding, the lights inside the greenhouse slowly dimmed, but the warmth of that day remained, in every brick, every sunflower, and in the hearts of those who had found their faith again. As Ethan and Lila walked hand in hand through the garden, both knew this was not an ending, but the beginning of a new life. The once cold and silent Carter mansion began to change. Ethan wanted every corner of the house to be filled with laughter, so he decided to turn it into a living home. The luxurious dining room, once rarely used, was transformed into a playroom, where the three boys painted on the walls, built forts out of blankets, and filled the air with laughter each afternoon. The old tea room, once reserved for distant guests, was turned by Lila and Ethan into a children's library, full of colorful books, drawings, and warm light streaming through the large windows. Noah, the quiet eldest, became passionate about painting. Every morning, he sat in the sunlight, carefully mixing colors, capturing the garden, the family, and Lila's smiling face on canvas. Lucas, the middle child, could never sit still. He ran to the yard, kicking his soccer ball, shouting and laughing, always pulling his father to join in. Ethan was no longer the man glued to his laptop and phone. He had become his son's teammate, muddy and breathless, but radiantly happy. Eli, the gentle youngest, loved to write. He scribbled short poems about light, about faith, about the secret garden where everything began. Ethan often read those poems aloud each night, and the whole family would applaud. Lila returned to teaching. She worked at a small community school near the outskirts of town, where many children had fallen through the cracks of the education system. Every morning, Ethan drove her to school, still keeping the habit of pausing for a few minutes while she prayed before entering the classroom. He would watch her from the car, still simple, still gentle, but stronger than ever. And he, after years of chasing profit, now devoted his energy to a scholarship fund for underprivileged kids. Ethan Carter, once a man defined by business, had finally discovered the true meaning of success. Margaret sold her lavish apartment in San Francisco and moved to a small house near her son's family. She learned to cook with Lucia, Margaret's new helper, and every Tuesday afternoon, she visited, bringing warm, homemade pastries. She was no longer the stern woman she once was, but a tender grandmother, often sitting with the boys and telling them stories about the day Grandma was wrong and how God gave her a chance to make it right. A year later, on a bright April morning, the garden was more beautiful than ever. The sunflowers stood tall, glowing under the morning sun. Noah, Lucas, and Eli ran across the flower beds, their laughter echoing through the garden, a place once filled with silence and shadows. In the middle of the garden, Lila sat on a wooden chair, her hands gently resting on her round belly. Her stomach had grown. Inside was a baby girl, the child they had all been waiting for. Ethan walked toward her, holding a glass of orange juice. He knelt beside her, placed his ear against her belly, and smiled. Is she listening to her brother's music? Lila laughed softly, her eyes shining like sunlight. I think she'll have your strength and her brother's kind hearts. Ethan looked around the garden, the place where it had all begun, where he had once been lost and found himself again. He whispered, "You know, I used to think happiness was something I had to earn, but it's been right here all along, in every prayer we've said together." Lila tilted her head, placing her hand over his. "Faith brought us home, Ethan." The three boys ran up and wrapped their arms around them. The family sat together in the middle of the sunflower field as the sea breeze brushed past, the scent of lavender blending with laughter. Above them, sunlight streamed through the glass, falling on them like a blessing for this new beginning. And when the sun began to set, they prayed together once more, as they did every day, as they always would. "Thank you for this day. Thank you for this home. Thank you because we have each other."